the way, did you realize Jerry's going to be 80 this year?
In some ways, yes.
Yes.
In some ways, absolutely.
Yes.
In other ways, no, I did not.
Yes. Jerry always says he doesn't have time for a bad time, and now he's going to be 80 years old coming in October. His head coach may be in the final season of his Dallas Cowboys tenure.
Wow.
Look, that is some of the conversation, one of the many storylines, Reg, as we get into our top news here when it comes to the Cowboys as we get you ready for training camp here. Your man Mike McCarthy, Big Mike Alec, was out here talking and popping off apparently to David Moore, the Dallas Morning News. And I quote, "My viewpoint is it's not a story. It's a media-driven narrative or at least a narrative driven outside my realm." You say, Kevin, well, what in the world are you talking about? Quote, "It's irritating that the first question you ask me has nothing to do with how I do my job," McCarthy told the Dallas Morning News today. "I show up every day for work to win a championship. How do we win today? That's what I'm asking." Well, Mike, we're going to be asking a lot of questions every time you lose a football game around here because I don't know if you've heard, Mike, there's a guy on your staff that might be the next head coach of this team if his defense continues to perform like they did last year, or there's some dude that Jerry Jones has an affinity with that used to be an assistant in Dallas who at some point led a team to a Super Bowl championship like you did, Big Mike, who's now on television. So, Mike, what you got to say going into 2022? And apparently he says, look, stop talking to me about stuff I don't have control over. I got a job to do. That's to wake up trying to win football games, Reg. Is that clear from Big Mike's perspective today?
Give me 1 second. Let's press pause. Mike. I was about to say Mike. Alec, can we just take a second to applaud the delivery, the tonation.
Oh, thank you.
The
Good
emphasis.
Good answer.
That
Good answer.
KG just put into all of that. That came from real deep down inside. All of his
I'm feeling
heart,
good coming back
most
from
of
COVID.
his kidneys,
I'm good now.
some of his gallbladder in there.
Yeah, all deep from the diaphragm right there for sure.
Okay, so the first thing that hit me about this quote is like, dog, you are so ornery right now. And I'm not even sure
real
that
defensive, isn't he?
I'm not even sure that I necessarily blame him. However, like, this is a funny arc for him because he came in and he was kind of ornery dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that struck us because Jason Garrett was definitively not. And this organization didn't kind of operate in the way that Mike McCarthy did when it was like, yo, I really don't want to talk to this media that much. I'm tired of y'all asking me all these questions. I really don't want to see y'all around these practices. And then I was kind of amazed how much it seemed like the front office and the Joneses in particular kind of bought into the way that Mike McCarthy wanted to do things. Mm-hmm. You know, there was a point in time where Jerry Jones wasn't like giving us stuff necessarily in these interviews, which since when, right? Jerry Jones loved telling you about what's happening.
That's a quote machine right there.
Right? And then there was a point in time where he was just kind of not giving us stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, so everybody's on this Mike McCarthy, no leaks out, everything in-house type thing. And like he kind of softened to the media after a little while. He back there, right back there. And I can't necessarily blame him. However, like it's not really cute to me. This I'm mad that y'all asking me these questions because really for a lot of Cowboys, onlookers, fans, what have you, that needs to turn into stuff. Yeah. Like that needs to turn into actions. That needs to turn into play style, right? Like if you angry, don't take it out on me via the media. Take it out on like them other teams.
Direct that energy toward helping your football team be able to help keep your job after this year. Like that's the biggest part here that going into this year, fairly or unfairly for Mike McCarthy, those will be the questions for him this upcoming year. We'll give you a little bit of a pass for the COVID year. Obviously, a lot of things happen in terms, this football team. You was out here hiring your buddies. They was out here destroying your defenses. Then you turn it around.
Dang, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that whole Mike Nolan experience.
Yeesh.
Yeah, we try to forget about that. But then you turn it around, maybe at the little coaxing of your boy, Jerry and Stephen Jones. Like, hey, we're going to bring this dude who, ran good defenses in Atlanta and was a head coach there who helped the team get to a Super Bowl. Let's see if he can help you turn your defense around. He does. And now this year, the question is, can he do more with less given the talent that's not on this team, but still push this team further, given the fact that this team should be good enough to win this division? But more importantly now, this fan base is to the point where it's not about what they do in the regular season. What do you do in the playoffs after what was a disappointing finish to last season, knowing now that your job is on the line based on how this team performs this year, fairly or unfairly? That is the microscope that Mike McCarthy is going to be operating under this coming season.
Right. So, I mean, obviously he reacted that way because he was continued to ask about like the idea of job security and people coming after his job. And he said, quote, "My viewpoint is it's not a story. It's a media-driven narrative, or at least a narrative driven outside my realm." And that's 100% fair. He can't really do nothing about the narrative being there. However, this thing that he said is something that I latched onto, right? I show up to work every day, or I show up every day for work to win a championship. How do we win today? That's what I'm asking. That's what everybody is asking. And I think the answers are going to be like the main thing is like, do you have answers for this? Because there's Mike McCarthy. I've actually been wildly interested by his press conferences. I know that a lot of people talk about like his breathing and stuff, but he's
hey, now Big Mike lost a little weight this offseason. Now give him a little credit now.
All right,
Big Mike on that Zach Walchuk soda plant out here, losing a little weight.
For his personal well-being, sure. Yeah, right.
I gotta pay the bills, man. Pay the bills.
But like he's done a lot of saying things that I personally have found interesting, and I like, you know, and it seems like his players, you know, seem to like him in the way that he comports himself. Yeah, I need to see that, and maybe not necessarily fair to say I need to see that in training camp, because how do you see that? However, yeah, no, tell me, how do we win today? I'm actually really interested in seeing what kind of answers you believe that you have in that realm. So I guess we'll see that as time goes along here. But yes, I get it. Frustrated with the Sean Payton's news and stuff. All right, cool. And if that's frustrating, that's fine. But yes, I am really interested in those things that you say that you are trying to figure out too. I want to know that as well, because that's going to be really indicative. And that's going to determine whether or not you're around these parts and you can continue to see forward that game plan for the Cowboys.
And some of that action may lie in a quote that we have seen start to circulate over the last couple hours. This comes from John Machota of The Athletic, speaking to Zach Martin. Quote, "I want to be a tough football team.
Okay.
I want to be a smart football team. Last year we had some trouble with some discipline and some penalties and stuff. The number one for us, a disciplined, tough football team," end quote. That's coming from a dude who doesn't do all that much talking. Zach Martin, if you know anything about him, my man is a quiet dude, goes about his business. So when he's got something to say and then says something like this, I think that gives you an indication of how the attitude of this football team for one of its leaders needs to change based on the way things ended against San Francisco. Because one of the things we were questioning after that game, the mental and physical toughness of this team, that clearly is going to be a message that's going to be disseminated throughout the course of training camp when it comes to this team. It sounds like, especially coming from a guy in Zach Martin.
Yeah, it's the way that he put that forward. It seems very clear that that's something that's front of mind for them. And I think you know me well enough to know I don't love delving into like, yo, are they mentally tough? It's a weird space for me that I don't necessarily know how to traverse. However, it's very clear that they have made this a priority. Like, they've made it clear that they want to get physically tough, and you have somebody, a veteran of this team who you can maybe say is a voice of this team saying clearly point blank, the penalties were unacceptable. We need to make sure that we know what we're doing, and we need to make sure that we can do it well. And these are all things that I don't know if fairly or unfairly, but a lot of times are attributed to the head coach, right? That's something I talked about last season. And I was like, how much do we have to put this on Mike McCarthy that these dudes are out here committing all these penalties all the damn time, right? Like, that is something that we typically go, oh, that's an undisciplined team. And I don't know how fair that is, but ultimately, like, you have to take some responsibility for that. And I was never particularly satisfied with the answers that we got from Mike McCarthy.
Especially when Mike got out there, I think it was after the Arizona game, and he was out here, the referees today, and we're not here. That's Mike, that's not what I want to hear from my head coach. If anything, it's about your team taking accountability based on what happened on the field, not your coach leading the charge about, oh, it was the refs this, it was the refs that, because all of that was echoed by his team that particular day.
Yeah, and look, when we talk about mental toughness, that was one of the places where I was like, dog, why are y'all all so damn worried about like the refs making calls that are good or bad? Because yes, they might be bad calls. Ultimately, that's what you're going to have to play with, right? How many times have we all played in whatever level of sports that we played in and you just got to play through refs? And I'm just like, I get it, right? There's only so much you can do with the refs, but right now it doesn't feel like you're doing all that. And like the team and starting at the top was really concerned about that. So when we talk about what can we do to get better, I would love to see some improvement there. I would love to see some accountability there and making sure that this team is all under those, in the same frame of mind Where it's like, yo, whatever happens there, we've got to make sure that we show up for work and overcome that, because this is a team that had, at the very least last season, I know there's a lot of questions of how strong is the roster this year, but last year looked like a pretty damn good team for at least a half of a season. Right? So you can't really hit me with the refs were the reason why. You should be able to play well enough so that the refs don't really matter. And so I have those types of questions that show up for Mike McCarthy, and I'm interested in seeing if he can answer them.